What's going on? This is the Retro XP Podcast, a podcast dedicated to retro video games from the first and second gen, with the Odyssey and the Atari 2600 all the way up to Gen 7 with the Xbox 360 and the PS3. On today's episode, we'll be talking about some news, kind of mostly geared toward the preservation of video games and what's being done behind the scenes that, we're not just hearing about over social medias. Former head of Limited Run talking about physical game publishing and some remastered games we got coming out for the modern consoles coming up in the next month or so. The talking point will be about the front-end emulation program called Launchbox. What it does, how it works, and how its so user-friendly design can help you get the most out of your digital retro game library. With all that said, let's get started. Don't forget that you can follow me on X, Threads, and Instagram, and you also YouTube at RetroX Podcast. Whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on, be sure to follow and enable notifications so you can find out when I drop a new episode. It's been pretty random as of late because, scheduling conflicts and all this stuff. So try to drop one at least every other week. So definitely hit that notification icon so you can find out when I drop one. As far as pickups go, I'm still kind of recovering from all the money I blew at Midwest Gaming Classic a couple months ago. And if you haven't gone on my YouTube channel, you can see the video where I share pretty much everything I picked up at that convention. And if there's anything I bought recently, it's kind of been geared toward the modern consoles. I actually just saw in the mail today, just got Assassin's Creed Black Flag resynced version. So I'm really excited to jump into that. I know that's not quite retro, but it's, still kind of a modern game that I still play. I, however, did get the Polymega Remix recently. And in a previous episode, I would say past few episodes ago, I talked about the Polymega console and all this stuff and talked a little bit about some news that they put out. And one of them was about this remix system. And it came up as a pre-order a few months ago and released of June of this year. I would say June 1st. I think I got my hands on the system. And if you didn't listen to my previous episode about the Polymega, this is a system that it's pretty much like a glorified disk drive that you can plug into your PC or PC gaming handheld, and you can install your physical media, your physical game library onto your PC device. It also has module support. So the Polymega modules that you have plug right in and you can upload your cartridge-based games onto your PC as well. So it's just basically kind of like one of those emulation devices where you can, like I said, it just downloads it, installs it straight into your PC library, so to speak. The Remix itself does not play games natively, so you can't just plug this into a TV and play retro games on it. It only serves as a medium, like I said, a glorified disk drive. It serves as a medium, to install your physical games into a digital library of sorts on your PC or handheld. It can kind of serve as a preservation of your library, so to speak, kind of like a backup. If in case for some reason your physical media that you have kind of goes, burns in a fire or, falls into a pit during an earthquake or something, at least you have it backed up digitally. Obviously the only caveat, you have to download the Polymega app from their main website, which serves as the emulation front end for launching your games. You cannot load ROMs into this app, however, so everything that runs on this Polymega Remix has to be basically installed from the system itself. And what I've done in the past is I've installed games onto my Polymega base unit onto an external hard drive, so to speak. And then what I did was I plugged in this external hard drive that I had into the Remix, and then I was able to basically import games pretty quickly, that way, which is kind of nice. Otherwise, the Polymega Remix serves as a standalone device, so you could sit at your computer or sit at your handheld and just, put games in, install it, and, just kind of upload it straight into the PC. So the interesting thing about this Remix is I had a problem with mine. It plugged in just fine. Everything went well. I imported a couple disc-based games just to see how it went, and it went smoothly. The Polymega app worked fine. I think there was a recent update that fixed a few minor issues that the app had. I can use a lot of different PC controllers. I can use their proprietary controller as well. I can also, but unfortunately, you can't use like the retro controllers. Unfortunately, so like you can't like plug in an NES controller into the system and then play it that way, which is kind of unfortunate. But there's tons of like 8-bit DO controllers that you could download that all work just fine with it. The problem I had was that when I would plug in the modules, like the SNES modules, the Sega Genesis module, it wouldn't recognize it. The remix itself would not recognize the module. And I tried all the modules I had. I have the SNES, the Nintendo, Genesis, TurboGrafx. None of them were recognized. I tried multiple things, tried, uninstalling the app, reinstalling it, unplugging it, plugging it back in, trying multiple ways of like putting the module on the system. I tried multiple different games too, and it was just not working. So reached out to Polymega, kind of told them the problem. It's like, hey, it's not recognizing my modules. And they came back, I think he emailed me back a couple days later and said, yeah, it sounds like it's the daughter board, so to speak. I think the kind of like linking board between the base unit, the remix, and the module itself when you plug it in. And interestingly enough, I had this same problem with the base unit. When I started getting modules for my base unit, it wasn't recognizing the modules there. And they told me the same thing. It sounds like the daughter board's not working. So same thing. I, sent the base unit back. They gave me either maybe a refurbished one or whatever. And in this case, I sent the remix back. And then, because they told me, yeah, here's a shipping label. Just send us the remix unit back. And then we'll send you another one. And they emailed me, I would say a week or two after I sent it back to them. And they were like, hey, try reinstalling the app. See if that works. And I'm like, guys, I already sent it back to you. And they're like, oh, okay, yeah, no problem. Well, we're sending you another one anyway. So, I mean, and the nice thing about this is that you don't need the remix to actually play the games on your PC. And basically, it was just, I would just fire up the Polymega app and then play the games I already installed on my PC itself. So that's kind of nice because, you install it once and it's just like the base unit. You install it once and then you're good to go from there. It's nice because especially for disc-based games and cartridge-based games, for people that want to preserve their games onto some sort of digital format. And yeah, I know you can emulate this stuff. I know you can. I mean, that's not a given, but there's a lot of people that kind of want to do it in a more, not necessarily legal way, but like, like a little bit more of a personal way of like, hey, I want to upload my physical collection onto a library that I can play. And yeah, so it's expected to come. I think I got word it was either supposed to come actually today as of this recording or tomorrow. So, as far as I know, as far as what serves, the Polymega Remix does exactly what it did. Really happy with it. I know that once the new one comes back, the modules will probably work just fine, hopefully. And, I'll go back to basically uploading my games onto the PC. And, once you fire up the app on the PC, I even did it on my Asus ROG Ally. Games run great. Has all the same functionality. You can change the resolution. You can change the scan lines. You can do all the things that the Polymega base unit can do. It's just now this is in an app form. So works great. Honestly, I'm super happy with it. Once it gets back in my hands, I'll be able to enjoy it a lot more. It's just kind of unfortunate. I would say it's one of those like early adopter problems. This is a new unit that they built and, it's got its quirks, got its bugs. I think I saw on the Polymega subreddit, a couple other people had the same problem. So I think Polymega just has to eat the cost of like, okay, well, we have to account for maybe some people having problems with this system. So like I said, it's going fine for me. As far as games I've been playing, got some time into Star Fox for the Switch too. I mean, this isn't exactly retro, but it's a remake of the Nintendo 64 version. And say what you want, this game has been remade, a couple times already. And now we got a Switch 2 version of it. I mean, it's a great remake for sure. Like it's pretty much stayed true to the original Nintendo 64 version, just with added cutscenes in between and added, character development, between the team at Star Fox, with Fox, Falco, Peppy, and Slippy and stuff like that. There's just a little bit more banter in between. And then there's, a little bit more of like a story expansion, more background between how Fox's dad, kind of had happened to him, so to speak. So if you like the Nintendo 64 version, you are going to love how faithful this recreation, this remake is. I mean, I have very fond memories of the 64 version. Still have my inbox copy that I bought when I was, younger, and really does the game justice. Looks great. There's so many little Easter eggs and stuff that they put in there, and just the graphics alone just looks amazing. So, otherwise, I've been playing a lot of my TurboGrafx 16 games. I almost said 64, but I've never had a TurboGrafx 16 in my life, and I got the module for it for the Polymega. So picked up a couple games at the Midwest Gaming Classic, like Arizonk, Bloody Wolf, and Bonk's Adventure. I think Legacy Axe was another one, but I haven't played that one yet. But Arizonk is kind of a fun, quirky little side-scrolling shoot 'em up. Very colorful, very unique. Bloody Wolf, kind of like a really cool, like kind of top-down Metal Gear Solid meets Contra type of game. Really cool concept. I think I talked about it in my pickups video. And then Bonk's Adventure is just another classic. Like I've never played a Bonk's game ever because I never had a TurboGrafx game, and I never picked it up for the Nintendo when it was out. But yeah, it's super fun platformer. Kind of a really neat concept. But I don't know if I'm going to be collecting more TurboGrafx games. It's going to be far and few in between because these games are kind of expensive, and I think I've hit that point in my collecting career where the games I don't have are the expensive ones. And then I start to think to myself, are these really worth spending hundreds of dollars on? Especially if they're games that I either don't have fond memories of or I don't think is worth that much money. That's why there's a little bit of appeal of collecting for Master System right now because they're a little bit cheaper. And if you'll listen to my past episode, I talked a little bit about how it's actually pretty reasonable to collect for the Master System. Not a lot of games came out for it. They're very cheap overall, especially if you buy PAL version games. But, this collecting hobby, as we've all discussed, is not for the faint of heart. Let's just say that. So, so that's what I've been playing. That's what I've been picking up. Let's dive right into the news. So Germany's largest video game preservation effort is ending, leaving its digital archive pretty much in peril. And this is according to Time Extension. And this unfortunate end of the video game preservation effort is ending pretty much due to not enough backing and financial support, and almost kind of going a little bit too far for what they thought was going to happen. So for context, Germany's largest video game archive, I'm going to butcher this, the Internationale Computerspielsammlung, it's called in the ICS, is set to close just months after funding from the Berlin Senate and the federal government commissar for the culture and the media. So this has got significant government backing by the German government, and the funding expired in April. And unfortunately, this was a project that began in 2019 as a joint effort between the Computer Games Museum of Berlin, the Entertainment Software Self-Regulation Committee, the Computer Games Collection of the Center for Computer Games Research at the University of Potsdam, the Game Association, and the Stiftung Digital Spielkultur. Wow. This is, there was a lot of people involved in this, a lot of organizations, a lot of, software regulation groups, so this got significant backing. And its stated aim was to build the world's largest collection of digital games, with the collection set to include the extensive archives of both the Entertainment Software Self-Regulation Body and the Computer Games Museum. So what they were going to do is they were going to take physical games and upload them to a digital archive of such. Not that we don't already have that all over the internet, but this is kind of more an official digital archive. And the initial collection was said to contain roughly 60,000 titles across cartridge, floppy disk, CD, DVD, Blu-ray discs, and other formats. And it was launched as a nonprofit limited liability company in 2023, so just 3 years ago. And this was reported to have been supported with 1.5 million euros, and 1.5 million euros is pretty comparable to American dollars. I got that in funding from the Berlin Senate and the federal government commissioner for the culture and media. And this money just basically ran out in April of this year. And according to some news media outlets out there, a representative from the Berlin State Department, Senator Franziska Giffey, warned that additional funding was not yet guaranteed, with the next step in the proposal being the permanent establishment of the physical facility with its own archive rooms and workspaces for accessing this archive material. So kind of like a library, so to speak, meaning, and this all means like long-term institutional funding would exceed the current scope of the ICS in terms of efficiency, cost effectiveness, and the described scope of tasks. So it was kind of in the end considered unviable. All the games that they collected, the 60,000 games, will be returned to their respective owners, and future of this project is up in the air still. And this is, let's admit, this is kind of this was a stretch, so to speak. It's a nice idea to have some sort of digital archive that you can go to and you can access the games and stuff, but everything costs money. All this costs money, and it's got to be funded, and there's got to be a way almost to make money off of this. And as much as we think that we care about digital games preservation and doing it kind of in a good way like this, in a kind of an official capacity, this is a tough sell. This is a tough sell. And I applaud them for doing something, especially getting government backing and having politicians kind of see the value and the viability of like backing up these games in an official manner instead of, having them be out in the ether and in the pirate realm, so to speak. So, all the respect to them. I wouldn't be surprised if this story pops up again in the future, because I think this is a very important discussion to be had about backing up a lot of these games in some sort of form, especially in an official capacity. Like I said, you can go on the internet, you can find all this stuff anyway, but I think a lot of people want kind of more of an honest archive, so to speak. And this kind of ties into the next story of the American side, the Video Game History Foundation. And they are kind of still demanding that we have some sort of meaningful solution to video game preservation. And, this kind of comes hot off the heels of the PlayStation announcement of, basically saying, okay, we're going to stop producing disc versions of their games by 2028. So January 2028, no more physical games will be printed on PlayStation discs. I talked a lot about it in my video game diary in the previous episode, so if you want more information on that, just tune in there. But also, it also plans to close the PS3 and PS Vita digital storefronts next year around this time. So, there's a lot of games that are locked onto those ecosystems that you can't get anywhere else. And understandably, this has led many online. If you've gone on Twitter recently, man, it's a firestorm. It's led many to express their concerns about the potential impact of these decisions on video game preservation, with a ton of obstacles standing in the way of historians and researchers accessing these digital-only games long after their release. This is what they tried to do in Germany, and this is what they're, kind of shouting from the rooftops here in America. From games being delisted due to licensing reasons. I've been hearing Rock Band has been getting hit with these licensing reasons with their songs, to how like songs are just getting removed from the ability to even being played because of, licensing issues, to entire storefronts being closed down. There's, when the Wii and the Wii U and the 3DS, tons of games were lost because of those store closures. And of course, we're going to see this next year with the PlayStation 3 and the PlayStation Vita. Sony tried to do this years ago, and were met with such huge backlash that they were like, okay, we'll keep it open for a while. But, In this case, they're like, okay, we're doubling down. We have to do this. And among the groups making their voices heard in this aftermath is, like I said, the Video Game History Foundation. It's a nonprofit organization led by Frank Ciafaldi. He issued a statement to the press in light of PlayStation's announcement and highlighted that these issues are by no means anything new, of course, and something professional preservationists have had to contend with for at least 2 decades. And the official statement that he said, and this is quote, is, "This is unfortunate news for those who still prefer buying games on physical media and is certainly a hit to consumer rights, the resale market, and game creators whose businesses rely on the physical market." You know, the mom and pop stores that we're talking about. But from the perspective of professional preservationists, it's a lot of P words, this doesn't have as much of an impact as you might expect. The reality is that the vast majority of video games produced over the last 2 decades were not made for dedicated home video game consoles, let alone pressed to physical media. And even when they were released on physical media, a day one digital patch was all but guaranteed, meaning that even though a disc is preserving data in an accessible way, it may not represent the game that people actually played. This is why retro is peak, because the game that you bought is the game that you get and play when you put it in your system. Museums and archives have been preparing for this future for a while the expectation that putting discs on a shelf isn't going to be a long-term solution for preserving new games. What continues to baffle us is what the industry expects institutions like ours to do about it. If platform owners are deciding to eliminate physical media and older digital storefronts, then we'd also like to see trade groups like the ESA, Entertainment Software Association, offer meaningful solutions for archives and museums to legally preserve digital-only content and make it accessible for research and play. Everyone agrees this is a serious problem, but the ESA has repeatedly opposed the efforts of cultural heritage institutions to reform digital copy protection laws to make it easier to do this work. The industry needs to meaningfully come to the table on this issue, because asking museums to download a copy of Grand Theft Auto 6 and hope it'll run in 50 years is not a preservation solution. And that's end quote. And of course, we segue into the next part of this conversation is that this situation has led some online to suggest piracy is the only extant form of media preservation that exists in games right now. To which Ciafaldi responded to this comment by saying, "As the director of a historical video game preservation institution and someone who has dedicated his entire adult life to this cause, this is accurate. This is accurate. We have attempted to work with the industry's trade organization to find a legal path forward, but they refuse to offer a meaningful alternative." And this is the baffling part about this whole conversation, is that there are institutions, there are organizations that are offering to assist these large-scale publishers, these large-scale developers and manufacturers to say, let's preserve the games that you have on your ecosystem, and silence and nothing from them. These institutions don't care about preserving their games and their media, and games that gave them life, games that basically sold systems for them and sold other games for them. And there, like I said, there's institutions out there like the Video Game History Foundation that's like, let's work on a solution, and silence, crickets. And so what is the internet going to do? What are customers going to do? Piracy. And it's fine. I'm finding it harder and harder to go again to, say anything against that. If there's no other meaningful solution to, a rightful, legal, and respectful way to preserve these games, then go pirate the games. Go pirate the games. It's hard to argue against that. And I think Ciafaldi kind of said the same thing. He's like, as much as I want to be honest with what I'm doing and what I say, this is our only good option. And companies, manufacturers, developers, publishers refuse to give us another alternative. And then they'll go complain about how people pirate their games. It's like, well, give them an option. Give them a good option. I guarantee you gamers out there want to obtain these games in a legal manner, but if you don't give them the opportunities to do that, they will not support you. I mean, and those are just my 2 cents at the end of the day, but it's kind of frustrating, especially from a person that has a physical library. And I worry about these preservation events, these preservation games. There's a lot of good games that we can't access anymore through legal means, or some sort of preservation effort, like in a museum, at a library, or some sort of like digital archive or something. Instead, we got to, play our cards on the internet. So it is what it is. Limited Run's co-founder once had aspirations to make a physically focused platform. In a series of social media tweets I found on X and stuff, former co-founder of Limited Run, Josh Fairhurst, he stepped down, I want to say about last year, and Limited Run has basically kind of tried to do some sort of, like restructuring. Limited Run was kind of promising too much, and they, the new owners kind of came in and walked back a little bit of their promises. But this guy, Josh Fairhurst, had plans to make a physically focused platform similar to how the Evercade works. And I believe I've talked about the Evercade in the past, how it kind of takes old games and puts them in a cart format so that you can play them on either a home console or, a handheld, so to speak. And he said, quote, anytime I would be asked, what do you plan to do when physical media is no longer supported on major platforms? My answer was always, we'll make our own physically focused platform. However, I never made much progress on this idea while I was at Limited Run, with Limited Run's parent company owning PlayOn, who has their own physical console business line. I don't really see this being something that is ever realistically pursued. I think Evercade is going to see a huge influx of new customers from this Sony news, which will help them achieve new heights of success. And it's interesting enough because I think Evercade just announced that some of their handhelds and game cards are going to be jumping up in price. We're just seeing that as a common news story these days. He also adds that he is working on several projects that will fully embrace physicality. It will be a while before anything is announced, but take whatever little solace you can in knowing that there's plenty of people in this industry that will not let physical ownership die. In the words of my former company, forever physical. And he also stated that in a follow-up tweet that obviously there are many players in this space, like Super Rare, IM8-bit, Strictly Limited, Retrobit, and others. It'd be a death wish for another player to enter this space. So let the companies that are doing their thing cook. Let them keep preserving a lot of these old games that we have and not letting physical ownership die. And it's kind of another voice in the crowd. I think I've overheard. He says he's got something cooking, not necessarily along the lines of what Limited Run's doing, but I think he says he's doing something. And I'm kind of curious to see what that is that he's doing. I'm a supporter of Limited Run. I still get games from them. I still buy games from them. I buy games from Super Rare, Strictly Limited, and stuff. So I fully support the physical space, as you've heard me say time and time again. And I appreciate companies out there doing what they can to help preserve it. But I know the clock will strike midnight at some point, and this will all be over at some point. But so long as there's an option. We've seen it in movies. We've seen it in TV shows. We've seen it in music for sure. And on all those, there's always a physical option. Granted, it may not be selling the most. It may not be dominating their markets, but people are still there willing to buy physical music, physical movies, physical books. There's a market out there for that. And so long as we have the option, we need the option because there's people out there that want that option. So that's a market that you have to cater to. So, I don't know. Like I said, old man yelling at cloud thing, but it is what it is. What it is. There's a lot of us out there. And here's something interesting. You can buy a new copy of Sonic the Hedgehog 1 and 2 for the Sega Genesis. And this is coming soon. Sega partnered with IM8-bit to launch a legacy cartridge collection. IM8-bit is, like I said, they sell old games and they sell like obviously collectible products about pop culture and video games and retro stuff. And this time they're bringing back Sonic 1 and 2 in Sega, with Sega's permission on actual Sega Genesis cartridge. So the original Sonic the Hedgehog Legacy Collection cartridge consists of a playable Sega Genesis compatible cartridge, so 1 and 2 separately. It's a translucent two-tail amber cartridge shell, nostalgic orange clamshell packaging with premium foil embellishments. This is straight from the website. I don't use the word embellishments that often. A full color premium instruction booklet, remember those, with restored artwork and all new forward. Retro pack-in surprises, A custom package design and restoration by Django Snow Art and Design. I don't know that one. 1 in 8 cartridges becomes infused with Chaos Emerald energy. And I don't know what this meant, but the website said, our celebration of Sonic's past collides headfirst with the future, and in the wake of all that, lightning fast energy, we found fragments of the emeralds themselves. These special cartridges will feature a unique translucent exterior housing a Chaos Emerald inner glow. I feel like this is a random pickup that you can grab, but it says 1 in 8. So hopefully you're lucky to get one. Sonic the Hedgehog 2 comes with all that as well. If you want them, you'll have to be fast, though. They're up for pre-order now for $99, and we'll ship in waves. The first wave will be shipping in Q3 of 2026, the next Q4 of 2026. And the price, $99 each. $99 each for Sonic the Hedgehog 1 and 2. I mean, you're buying all the extra stuff with it. You know, everybody knows you can go buy Sonic the Hedgehog for the Sega Genesis for $10. You know, if that's Sonic the Hedgehog 2, same thing. You don't need this if you have those games already. This is purely a collectible item. But $99, that seems wild to me. But if you're a Sonic fan and you're a collector fan, this may be something cool. Like, me personally, I'm not going to get this. I don't see this as a value. But I don't know. Maybe I see it in a convention one day in the future, and I'm like, oh, maybe I'll bite the bullet on it, but it'll probably be upsold. It'll probably be upsold, as the market is. So that's really it for news. Let's find out what's coming out in releases over the next month or so. In case you haven't gotten enough Final Fantasy games in your life, Final Fantasy X and X2 is coming to the Switch 2 on July 23rd. If this is Final Fantasy X has been regarded as probably one of the better Final Fantasy games out there. It was the first one to feature fully voice acted cast. Came out on the PlayStation 2. I liked it. I didn't like it as much as everybody else did. I thought it was. I thought the character. I call him Titus. I know most people call him Titus, but I didn't see him as a really compelling main character. Tragic, obviously, character, but I didn't see him as too compelling compared to some of the other main characters that are out there. But yeah, so I'm not for sure if this has a physical copy being made. I highly doubt it, but there's going to be a Switch 2 version. I mean, you can buy it on the Switch. You can buy it on every modern console right now, but now you're getting a Switch 2 upgrade. It's kind of cool. So coming out July 23rd. A few days after that, we got Halo Campaign Evolved. This is coming out for the Xbox, PlayStation 5, yes, PlayStation 5, and PC on July 28th. Now, this is just the campaign of the first Halo game. There's no multiplayer packed into this. They just basically built the first Halo game from the ground up with kind of a new engine, and it looks good, looks great, looks pretty. And I think this was Xbox's push to have their games be on more platforms. So hence why it's coming out on the PlayStation 5, but I highly doubt that's going to stay for future Halo games that are being made. But if you want Halo on your Sony system, this is the time to get it. So looks good. I mean, I think there's going to be a few quality of life changes that they have with this, and a few extra missions. I think there's a couple prequel missions that happened before the events of the first game, so that's kind of cool. A little bit of story exposition, but yeah, another Halo remaster. I would say remake. This is more of a remake. Truxton. If you're a fan of Truxton, there's a new Truxton game coming out on July 30th for all the systems: Switch 2, Xbox, PS5, PC. It's not a remake per se, more of a continuation of the series, kind of the same top-down shoot 'em up style gameplay, just obviously with 3D, 3D ships, 3D enemies, 3D everything, basically. So modern game, old school sensibilities. Looks great, looks amazing. I got into Truxton late. I want to say I bought my copy of Truxton for the Sega Genesis just last year. Definitely was a game I missed out on. It's unfortunate, but also I still got to experience it. I'm excited for this one. I pre-ordered this. I'm excited for this to come out. I'm getting a physical copy for it on the Switch too. Not a game key card, thankfully. So Elder Scrolls Oblivion, the remake. This game came out a year or so ago. Came out on the PlayStation 5, PC, and the Xbox Series. It's coming out on the Switch 2 on August 11th. And here's the caveat. It's coming with a proper physical copy. No game key card. So the card that you're getting has the game entirely on the card itself. I mean, there's probably going to be an update, that you'll have to download, just like with any modern game. But if you're a fan of Elder Scrolls Oblivion game, the original one, this is a full-on remake that I've heard mixed things about. I heard it's kind of buggy, and they didn't fix it. I also heard it's true to the original, which I think divides the fan base, because I think the original one I've always heard was pretty janky, and they kept a lot of the jank, which I think maybe newer gamers are like, well, we don't want that jank. But the older gamers are like, it's got all the jank. I don't know, whatever. I've never played the original one. I think the first Elder Scrolls game I played was Skyrim, and that was cool. But I'm excited for this, I think mostly because it's a proper physical copy on the Switch 2. And I wanted to play this, but I think having a physical edition with the game on it is more appealing to me. So Metal Gear Solid Legacy Collection 2, coming for all modern systems as well on August 27th. This collection includes Metal Gear Solid 4, which was initially locked onto the PS3 up until now, and Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker, which was exclusive to the PSP at the time. Metal Gear Solid 4 was pretty much a movie with a little bit of gameplay in it. I want to say it probably holds one of the records as one of the longest cutscene endings ever in history. It's like practically watching a movie. The cutscenes are long when they ask you to save your data in between the cutscene. I mean, it was a good game. Don't get me wrong. Great story, great characters, but man, some of those cutscenes could get very long in the tooth. But yeah, so there's that option. Obviously, Legacy Collection 1 is kind of more the older games, the Nintendo and Master System games, or the MSX games, and then also, the PlayStation 1 era, PlayStation 2 era games. So, and now Metal Gear Solid 4 is free from the PS3 library. You can get it on everything. So, yeah, that's really kind of what's coming out. Let's dive right into the talking point. You've heard of people taking their PCs and emulating. I know you've thought about it probably, and you've kind of wondered where to start, because there's so many different front ends, there's so many different programs, there's so many different YouTube tutorials on do this, do that, whatever. And the rabbit hole goes deep. It goes really deep, and you could really get lost with the breadth of information, tools at your fingertips. Stroke of a few keys on Google search, you'll be able to do it. You'll be able to hit the ground running. And it's not honestly that hard. You don't need to be a programming wizard or anything like that to kind of find a way to emulate on your PC, depending on how you do it, of course. And, you can go out there and you can find what you need. It's not hard, like I said. And you don't need to listen to this episode. You don't need to listen to me talk to find out how easy it is. However, I'm here to talk about one particular front end, and that's Launchbox. And it's a front end for your PC and also Android devices, if you have an Android tablet or phone or something like that. And what I mean by front end program is it's basically like a program that you launch that is sort of a launch pad for firing up your games. Kind of like how when you want to play a game on Steam, you fire up Steam. And there's also Steam OS with, the Steam Decks. It's basically a proprietary launch pad for Steam games. It looks different than just launching the program onto your PC, so to speak. And it's even the same as like launching up your PlayStation 4 or Xbox Series system, Nintendo Switch. It's just basically front end for you to just click through, access your games, and just have it start out right away. And Launchbox initially started out as an attractive front end of DOSBox, which was a front end you can upload to your computer, and this was years and years ago, that could play DOS games on modern computers. And for us ancient ones out there, if you wanted to play, this was well before Steam, if you wanted to play PC games, you obviously put the disc in, and you had to launch DOS, which was basically like a text-based programming program. You had to get back out of Windows. I remember to do this. And it was basically a text-based front end on older PCs that's how you could launch your games back when. And no one uses DOS for anything really. I don't think there's more appealing ways to play your PC games now. But if you wanted to play these old DOS games on your modern PCs, you had to have a good front end, and that was what DOSBox did. And of course, this over time, DOSBox morphed into Launchbox and has long since expanded to support both modern PC games and emulated console platforms. It could play up to modern consoles right now. I would say more so PS3, 360. I think that's the tippy top, maybe. Launchbox aims to be the one-stop shop, though, for gaming on your computer for both modern and historical games. So that's a quote just basically straight from the website. And Launchbox kind of includes this automated import process for everything. You can fire up Steam games from here. You can fire up good old game classics, ROM files, which is pretty much the bread and butter of your games that you want to emulate, MS-DOS games, so much more. You can have box art, the showcases, metadata automatically downloaded from the Launchbox game database with basically coverage, excellent coverage for all your games and very descriptions of everything. And it can also allow you to organize your video games by using that database. And we're talking thousands upon thousands of games are on this website or on this database. And they include cover art, they include game screenshots, descriptions, credits, reviews, so much more that are already populated on here, and as well as even the availability for adding games into the database if it's not already on there. I can't imagine there's a lot of games out there that aren't on there because this database is pretty massive. But if you find an obscure game, you can basically add it to the database. I mean, it has data from as ancient as the Odyssey and the Apple II, all the way up to the modern era now with PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series systems. And PC is a little bit different because obviously the metadata is on Steam as well, and that ecosystem is massive. I mean, whew. And we're talking, data and games from hundreds of systems, many of which I never even heard of. And this includes arcade systems as well. Now, when you download the Launchbox program onto your PC or Android device, it has the option to download the system's respective BIOS and emulators. And what I mean by this is, so say, for example, arcade games. You want to, this mostly what people get Launchbox for is to basically make their own arcade machine and play arcade games. You can't play these arcade games anywhere, unless you find a random, retro arcade somewhere in your town, which they're not even guaranteed to have the arcade game that you want, or even if it's available. So in order to play arcade games onto your PC, which people widely do, MAME is the major emulator for arcade games. And you could download the software straight from the Launchbox app. There's also other ways to play arcade games like Capcom BIOS, Naomi BIOS, and many others. It makes it easy to set up straight from the app instead of just trying to kind of click through and find everything on your own. You launch Launchbox and it gives you the option, hey, do you want to download MAME? Hey, do you want to have the most updated version? We do it straight here from this program. Very easy, very user-friendly. And the platform works with ROMs. That's the proprietary way that you can play your games. I forget what ROM stands for off the top of my head, but it's ROM. So your games can easily be transferred into the app from whatever storage device you have. If you backed up your games from whatever platform, your Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, whatever, onto your hard drive, you could just upload it straight into your PC, so to speak. And you can find your own ROMs as well. And a full MAME collection set is available straight from the Launchbox app. When you fire this up, it asks, hey, do you want to download the MAME collection onto your PC? And we're talking hundreds and thousands of games being downloaded right off rip. And this is a really great way to get started. And it's a huge collection. And it takes time to download and sift through. There's tons of games in this collection. There's doubles. There's different regions. So there'll be for example, Street Fighter 2 is a very popular one. There's like a Japanese version. There's a European version. There's an American version. And then there's all these other different, even homebrew type Street Fighter games. Or, there's Street Fighter 2 Championship Edition, Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo, whatever. I mean, there's so many different versions of all these games that are in this pack when you download this. So buyer beware. You're going to have kind of decision paralysis when you download all these MAME games, these arcade games, and you're like, what am I going to play first? Thankfully, you can actually save games to your favorites, so you can just, collect through. But there's also the concept of scraping game data on here as well, because with each game, you download it, it can have its own suite of artwork and description data attached to it, like I talked about with the games database. You can even upload bezel artwork that showcases game art during your gameplay sessions. Even some of the original bezels that were on the original arcade cabinets, which is a really nice little feature. It's good stuff if you're playing on a widescreen TV, but with 4:3 dimensions, which really is the only way you should be playing arcade games. This also takes a lot of time to download too. We're talking gigs of art, gigs of stuff, especially if you got that full MAME ROM download pack. Not including the other ROMs you may have, of course. This also scrapes media from Emu movies, which has trailers, videos, and even music tracks for your collection of games. So you can use this. You can use Launchbox even as a movie player, trailer player. You can use it to even play music. You can use it as a jukebox. Really cool. Really cool. All the things you can do with this. Launchbox can really be your one-stop shop for firing up games across all your collections too. Like I mentioned earlier, you could fire up Steam games, Good Old Games, Epic, Xbox, other modern front ends too. It does its own once you set it up, so which is kind of nice. Nothing manual required. You just basically click like, hey, you log in with your account, and then it can kind of like get access to whatever games you have in your library. And then, you kind of hit the ground running there. Now this sounds like an ad. This sounds like I'm a corporate shill, or like this is an ad for the company, or if I'm sponsored by them, I wish I would be. Well, I would love to, but I'm really not. I've used this front end for many years, and I've primarily used it for my MAME arcade I built. So however you build your arcade, say for example, in this situation, you could use this on your home PC. Sit at your desk and plug in a controller and just use it on your home PC, or if you have a fight stick, you can do that too. So, but I chose to build an arcade, and however you do it is really up to you. And if you want to make your own old school arcade emulator, the nice thing is that you don't really need a modern PC to do it. A 10-year-old PC can run arcade games from the 80s, 90s, and even sometimes early 2000s like a breeze. And these things go for real cheap. Even those old workplace PCs that companies practically throw away when they're done can play these games real well. I know I've used one personally for many years, and just a kind of the standard PC with no big graphics cards or big CPUs or anything like that. So once everything's hooked up to whatever monitor you use, a VGA monitor if you're using an old PC, or if you have HDMI, that's also great. You can run Launchbox and off to the races you go, as long as you wire in whatever controller you want to use. I built my own arcade stick setup. I bought a USB controller board. It's a small little controller board that allows you to wire in arcade buttons and joysticks. And speaking of that, I downloaded a plan, an arcade joystick button layout plan from the internet, and drilled my holes appropriately to give that kind of like professional look. And I did it in a 6-button configuration. You could do it in any 5-button, 4-button, 8-button, whatever you want to do. You can have a start button, player coin button. You can do all sorts of different configurations, however you want to do it. And you can program the buttons to do whatever you want. I also kind of designed it in a curved layout, so it kind of fits the contours of my fingers, or at least my hands, so to speak. The USB controller plugs right into the PC, just like any normal USB controller. Recognizes it instantly. You can configure the buttons to be specific to whatever games you want it to do on the Launchbox app, but for most cases, you have to upload the MAME front end to do so, which I feel it's its own tutorial. And I apologize if that sounds confusing, where it's like you got the MAME front end that runs off of Launchbox. In this MAME front end, you can do more button configuration. You can do more specific game settings like difficulty settings, free play options, credit options, all this stuff. It's almost like flipping a dip switch. If you have the original arcade, you flip the dip switch and then you can go into the options menu, which is kind of nice. So like you could change the difficulty of games if you want to. So now, if you want the premium experience with this, you can buy into the Launchbox Premium program, which allows you so many customizable options, as well as what's called Big Box mode. And it's a really fancy high-end menu front end for launching games on an arcade setup. I mean, you could launch Launchbox like whatever, no big deal. But if you want it to look fancy, look a little bit more high-end, look a little bit more like kind of like an operating system, this is the way to go. It makes scrolling through games and systems look much better than the standard Launchbox app look. Adding to this with the premium, you get better controller automation, badges, don't know what that means, achievements, pause screens, startup shutdown screens, customizable fonts, icons, video playback support, so much more. And of course, future updates. So with a one-time purchase, you can buy into this for $30, and within that year you get one update, and they update this premium pretty frequently. I would say once a year. But if you want unlimited updates forever, it's $75. And if you plan on using this long term, this really is worth the $75. And this is forever. Like I said, you pay this once and you're locked in for life. You're locked in forever. So as far as my personal experiences go with the platform, it's been nothing but great. I've used it for years and years, and the support these guys have, the developers, Unbroken Software, the support they've given this platform is nothing short of extraordinary. It gets better and better with every year, which is crazy because you think how much better can it get? It gets better every year. The smoothness and how it works is amazing. The ability to have multiple emulators and multiple customizable options, and it's just nothing. It's amazing. I mostly use it as an arcade MAME setup, not really for any other emulation. I've used it to help run some Steam games like modern Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat games, which can get annoying because it takes so long to upload those games. However, that's not Launchbox's fault. It's more on with Launchbox having to basically run Steam on top of it. So you go into Launchbox, you click the game, it has to upload Steam, it has to run Steam to do it. So it just takes a little bit longer, but once you get going, it's fine. It's not a major problem, but it's still something to consider if this is what you want to use Launchbox for, to run your Steam or your Epic games. Despite that, it runs everything smooth. And while some ROMs you may download don't work as well or not at all, it's not that much, but some, it may be your favorite game. Who knows? It's been well documented across forums, and there's workarounds around it that people can help you with. And even with the possibilities of improvements too, there's constantly every year, there's like ROMs, arcade ROMs that improve and can be, usable. Adding to this, I've used Unbroken Software's YouTube channel to help me with some of the intricacies of the software, as well as older ETA Prime videos. And they've been great resources. Very easy, very user-friendly, very much, kind of, like I said, it's so user-friendly. You don't need to be a programming expert to use this stuff. And the tutorials make it look so easy. And it is easy when you set it up. You're like, oh, that is kind of easy. And if you're interested in emulating on your computer, this is really one of the best ways to go with it. I might better recommend a newer PC as opposed to something more ancient. So me personally, like, if your parents are getting rid of an older PC that they have, like a 10-year-old PC will work just fine if you're sticking with old retro games. If you want to play stuff more modern, say around the 20-year-old mark or so, I would say look into getting something a bit more beefy in specs, like an older gaming PC or something like that. But, if you're going to be using this for more retro, you don't really need to look that much or that hard. But really, the customizable options here are so wide and vast that you really can make the front end look and run as great as you want it to run. As far as your creativity can go, you can make it look however you want. YouTube video links, custom images and art, descriptions, even your own ratings and reviews. Like I said, you can create a favorites tab. You can collate games by platform. You can collate games by genre, multiplayer, single player, whatever. The world's your oyster with this. And like I said, there's also achievements involved. You can link achievements to these games and kind of put yourself on leaderboards right from the app as well. I mean, you could really get lost in the weeds on what you can all do with this. And like I said, starting out is free. You download the app and it gets you going. And if you want to support these guys, which I highly recommend, like I said, that one-time fee of $30 or even $75 if you want unlimited updates is really kind of the way to go. I mean, the fact that you're getting even a portion of this app for free with all the functionality it does is nothing short of amazing. I feel like I've said that phrase multiple times already, but it really is. It's a really amazing front end. It's a really amazing way to play, to emulate games on your PC, and one of the best out there, if not the best. So that about does it for this week's episode. So thanks. I haven't done a kind of like a news games kind of episode in a while, so it's good to jump into these every now and then. So if you haven't already, follow me on my social medias, X, Threads, Instagram at RetroX Podcast. Also, YouTube channel. All my episodes get dropped on there on YouTube. There's some videos I'm going to be working on in the future. Hopefully, some good ones that'll be retro themed. Video is not my forte, but I hope to at least maybe try my hand in some more videos in the future, but we'll see. So thanks to the Hair of the Dogcast Network for allowing me to join their ranks and be part of the network. So see you on the next episode.